joke wasn't funny, it was lethal, because when late-night comedy whispers about photos the public has never seen, it's not humor anymore, it's a countdown to collapse. Let's get one thing straight right now. This story is not about a punchline, it's about panic. The kind of panic that rattles gates, shatters glassware, and sends phones lighting up in Montecito like a 5-alarm fire. Because the second Saturday Night Live let that line slip, that knowing little smirk, that casual reference to images not yet public, everything changed. And behind closed doors, the meltdown was allegedly instant, full-blown, unfiltered, uncontainable. Because SNL didn't invent anything, they signaled it, and that signal landed like a bomb. According to multiple whispers swirling behind the scenes, the photos in question aren't the tired, recycled images that defenders already waved away. These aren't mislabeled party pics. These aren't Photoshop fantasies. These are new images privately circulating, allegedly linking Meghan Markle directly to elite yacht circles connected to Prince Andrew. Not after the fairy tale, not during royal life, but before Harry, before titles, before the carefully curated origin story. And that's why the reaction wasn't denial. It was chaos. Sources say the mood behind the gates turned volcanic, voices raised, objects thrown. A frantic scramble of legal calls and PR damage control as one brutal realization set in. Once late-night television jokes about photos the public hasn't seen yet, the story isn't rumor anymore. It's a ticking clock. Because comedy is always the last stop before confirmation. Now let's rewind, because Meghan Markle didn't just appear out of thin air. Before the palace, before the Netflix tears, before the speeches about being silenced, she was a working actress navigating circles far above her earthsome. And that's not shade, that's math. Struggling cable TV actresses don't just drift into billionaire playgrounds. They don't casually vacation on invitation-only yachts. They don't move freely through private members clubs tied to global power brokers unless someone opens the door. And those doors? They don't swing open by accident. That's where the yacht world comes in. Not as a slur, not as a joke, but as industry shorthand. A quiet system. A whispered economy. Access is the currency. Proximity is the transaction. Nobody's claiming every yacht is a crime scene, but pretending they're innocent floating brunches is laughable. These are curated environments, controlled guest lists, carefully selected company, and everyone involved knows the rules, even when they're never spoken out loud. So when Meghan's name keeps orbiting that world, not once, not twice, but repeatedly, the question stops being if she was there. It becomes how early. This would still be gossip if yachts were the end of it. They're not. Because the moment Prince Andrew enters the frame, the entire conversation turns radioactive. Andrew isn't controversial, he's untouchable. A name so toxic it scorches anyone standing too close. And for years, royal researchers and insiders have quietly alleged that Meghan Markle knew Prince Andrew long before she ever met Prince Harry. Not through marriage, not by coincidence, but through overlapping elite circles. Through private spaces, through the very world Andrew has spent decades trying to escape. And here's why that matters more than anything. If Meghan knew Andrew before Harry, the fairy tale disintegrates. The outsider narrative collapses. The idea that she stumbled innocently into royal life evaporates. Because then this wasn't destiny, it was positioning. And that's the part nobody wanted examined. Because once Andrew's name touches your origin story, everything gets re-examined. The introductions, the timing, the friendships, the access. And that's not defamation, that's consequence. This is why the story stayed buried for so long. Not because it lacked whispers, but because it threatened too many interests at once. Let's kill another illusion while we're here. These weren't influencer boat trips. These weren't cute sunset selfies. Elite yacht culture is a closed ecosystem. Invitations are vetted. Attendance is vouched for. Men with money show up knowing exactly why they're there. Women show up knowing what's expected, even if no one ever says it aloud. That's why these events are whispered about, not advertised. That's why nothing is supposed to follow you back to shore. So when people ask questions, they're not being cruel, they're being logical. You don't accidentally end up there. Now let's talk about where all these worlds quietly overlap, the place no one wants to examine too closely. Soho House, not a restaurant, not a hotel, a gatekeeping machine. No cameras, no press, no accountability. Built for one purpose, connecting ambitious people to powerful ones behind closed doors. And sitting at the center of Meghan Markle's early orbit there was one name that keeps reappearing like a ghost. Marcus Anderson. Not a casual friend, not a +1, the global membership director, the human key, the man who decided who got access and who didn't. And yes, the same man who later introduced Meghan Markle to Prince Harry, the same man seated front and center at her wedding, the same man who was once inseparable from her inner circle and then vanished from public view. People don't disappear when everything is innocent. They disappear when attention becomes dangerous. Because once people start tracing introductions instead of love stories, the illusion cracks. And that's when whispers turn into something louder. Author and researcher Kirby Summers has alleged for years that photos exist, not the debunked ones, but different ones, showing Meghan Markle on a yacht in Phuket with Prince Andrew in the early 2000s. And here's the detail that makes insiders shift uncomfortably. She claims mainstream media outlets already possess them. Let that sink in. Because media doesn't sit on nothing. Editors don't bury irrelevance. Legal teams don't swarm around fiction. Silence like this only exists when releasing something would damage multiple powerful players at once. That's why this story never dies. It just waits. And now, thanks to a single late-night joke, the waiting may be over. Because once comedians start referencing what media won't show, the pressure changes. Sadly, this isn't about rumors. It's about timing. And Meghan Markle isn't fighting gossip anymore. She's fighting the clock. Because here's the part nobody can spin, sanitize, or smile through on a talk show couch. If this story were completely fake, dead wrong, laughably untrue, the response would have been instant and surgical. A clean denial, a crisp timeline, a confident explanation that shut the door and bolted it. That didn't happen. What happened instead was silence. Strategic silence. The kind that rearranges calendars, reshuffles allies, and suddenly creates distance where closeness once lived. No firm denial of knowing Prince Andrew early. No explanation of elite access. No clear account of how a mid-level actress was moving freely in rooms usually reserved for billionaires, royals, and men whose names never appear on guest lists. Just nothing. And in media, silence is never neutral. Silence is a move. It's the same playbook used when speaking would create more damage than hiding behind lawyers and letting time do the dirty work. But time has a habit of turning whispers into patterns, and patterns into inevitability, because the longer the silence stretches, the louder the unanswered question becomes. And now there's another layer that makes this whole situation emotionally explosive, because this story doesn't just haunt reputations, it humiliates someone, Prince Harry. Because once you even suggest, allegedly, hypothetically, quietly, that Meghan Markle knew Prince Andrew before she met Harry, the optics change forever. Suddenly, Harry isn't the rescuer prince who plucked a woman from obscurity. Suddenly, he's the last man in the room to realize what room he walked into. And that's brutal. Because if elite networking came first, if access preceded romance, then Harry wasn't destiny. He was the endpoint of a trajectory already in motion. That doesn't mean love doesn't exist. But it does mean innocence evaporates on contact. And once the public starts viewing a royal marriage through the lens of strategy instead of fate, there is no reset button. No rebrand big enough. No documentary glossy enough. People keep asking the same question over and over again. Why didn't this explode years ago? Here's the truth no one likes admitting. Stories like this don't surface when they're dangerous. They surface when they're useful. Because when cultural gatekeepers start hinting at what media won't show, it means the dam is already cracked. And here's the cruel irony in all of this. None of it required new evidence to explode. All it needed was acknowledgement. A raised eyebrow, a wink, a single line delivered under studio lights that said, "We know you know." And suddenly, the fairy tale felt fragile. Now, the question isn't whether more comes out, it's when. Because curiosity doesn't need leaks to survive. It feeds on silence. It grows stronger the longer explanations are avoided. And once it takes hold, it becomes unstoppable. This wasn't the end of the story. This was the moment the curtain lifted just enough for people to realize the stage was never empty, and the script was never as simple as it looked. And what happens next won't be decided by lawyers, palace walls, or perfectly crafted statements. It will be decided by curiosity. And curiosity, once ignited, doesn't wait for permission.